Welcome to the Lifeline, a production of Simply BJE. The goal of this podcast is to build, inspire, and to empower our listeners through conversations on business, leadership, and mental health. We invite you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at www.simplybje.com/the Lifeline. Now, let's tune in for today's episode. Top of the day, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Lifeline. We're your host, life strategist, and entrepreneur, Bo Powell, social media influencer and owner of the For Real brand, Lindsberg Petway, and yours truly, leadership consultant and mental health advocate, Barry J. Elliott. You can visit us at www.simplybje.com/The Lifeline and on social media on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and now on TikTok. Today, once again, we have special guest Dr. Derrick Coleman, Superintendent of the Rouge School District in Michigan. He has served in this role since 2012. He has an over 25-year tenure in education with experience ranging from English teacher to principal before assuming his current role. And as he said to us last week, he was once a student just like his current student, so he has a different vantage point. So once again, Dr. Coleman, welcome. We are excited about our conversation today because we were certainly empowered and enlightened by our last conversation. So welcome once again.
Listen, it is my pleasure.
Pleasure.
And so I'm gonna kind of go back to our conversation from the last episode because you mentioned a lot of changes that you made in the school district. You said you wanted to be like Google, and this may be a tough question to answer because you can't necessarily speak for everybody else, but I really would like your insight because I know school districts are dedicated a certain amount of money. And so why haven't we seen more things like this? And there could be some other school districts who have done something similar. But why haven't we seen more changes and more disruptions and, more innovation in education to bring about, this holistic approach to learning and support?
Oh man, that's a great question.
Oh boy.
I can only speak for myself, right?
Right.
And again, I'm a child of poverty. I can remember, and here's the funny part about life. Your trauma feels like it stays with you. While it might be a single event, it stays with you for years until you've healed from it. And even once you've healed, it's still compromised to a degree, depending on the next overwhelming event that could be familiar. So what do you tell a kid who grew up, like I could read in kindergarten and I have no idea how, because my mother didn't graduate from high school. And third grade, they wanted to double promote me. Sixth grade, I scored in the 98th percentile on the California Achievement Test. I went to one of the most prominent high schools in the state of Michigan, and it's known nationally for ninth grade, and that was Cass Technical High School in Detroit. But it was the one year I didn't get school clothes. And so for anybody who knows anything about Detroit, Cass is a magnet, and its alumni are some of the who's who in America.
Right.
So how do you tell a kid who doesn't get school clothes to go into this space and you're dealing with the sons and daughters of Detroit's elite? We didn't have a car, and it was kids not being dropped off, driving their own cars to school. And so I knew the embarrassment of not feeling like you belonged. So here I am, this academically gifted kid. I didn't go back to school after Thanksgiving break because I broke my ankle, but I didn't want to go back because I just wasn't comfortable there. And the most successful people I know are confident. There's a confidence that whether you're in athletics, whatever field of study you're in, the most confident are going to be the people who will be the most successful. Yeah. And so for me, if you take me and I'm this gifted kid, right, that didn't feel comfortable going into this space, I got Lindsberg. You remember when the starter jackets came out in Detroit?
Exactly, yeah.
I got a starter jacket, right? But that was my winter coat. A starter jacket is not a winter coat.
Right.
And so I would watch teachers who would drive by us at the bus stop who wouldn't even look. And I'm like, man, you see us.
Right.
And then I think about the experiences of my friends I grew up with the sons and daughters of dope fiends and heroin addicts. And so if the research tells us, no, not the research, if the school demographic data tells us that this is the population of students you're dealing with, there should be an extra level of care given to those kids. when they walk in. And so, at any rate, my district is a reflection of me being able to successfully address my childhood trauma. Watching people who I knew, had they been born into a different household, would have been incredibly successful. They would have been attorneys, doctors, CEOs. Instead, they were people who struggled with finding a place in society because they hustled out of sheer survival. So everybody's experience, I didn't start college till I was 20. And I felt like a failure because of my gifts and talents, because my teachers and counselors automatically assumed that I had it figured out. And I didn't. Children rarely become what they haven't seen. So if my mother didn't graduate high school, how is she going to help me navigate the college application process or help me understand FAFSA and the fact that college isn't free because your K-12 experience was, or let me send this deposit down for housing. Everything I knew about college came from school days or a different world.
Yeah.
And so if you get these opportunities to not reinvent yourself, but failure has been my greatest teacher. And so when I get to college, I felt like I was behind because I'm a freshman, but I'm the same age as juniors. So that in itself gave me this incredible drive because I felt like a failure. And then when I had to choose a profession, I chose a profession that if money didn't matter, where I could have made a difference. And so the only thing I'm saying is that I've carried these burdens of these hundreds and thousands of people who didn't have the same opportunities. And I wanted to create a space that allowed for the gifted to excel, but also those other children who may have not had those same gifts or opportunities. And so I can't tell you that other people see it the way that I see it. And I feel confident enough in myself that if this doesn't work, I can do something different. But I need this to work because I have to pay it forward because there were some great people in my life who injected something into me that made me want to uh, reach back and allow my gifts and talents to be used by people.
Outstanding.
It's incredible. I mean,
Outstanding.
because when you stepped into River Rouge, Dr. Coleman, the district was facing closure.
Absolutely.
And so what was your mindset walking into that? I mean, you kind of lended some credence to that just in what you were just sharing then. But I know it had to be challenging too. And I don't want to assume you felt like walking away, but if you did, what kept you there?
So one, I took the job believing that it was a $2.2 million deficit.
Mm.
And the day that I arrived, I found out that the deficit had grown by 1.2 million. So I inherited a district with $3.4 million deficit and declining enrollment. The state of Michigan closed Inkster Public Schools, Highland Park Community Schools, Saginaw Buena Vista Schools, Muskegon Heights Schools. There were 4 or 5 districts that the state was very draconian and eliminated because of debt. So I walked into both an academic crisis and a financial crisis. Had I known just how challenging it was, I may have not taken it because the things that I had walked into um, is what I thought I was walking into, and then the reality of it. But again, as humble as I project or present myself, I'm incredibly confident in my ability to get some things done. And I'm a wartime general. I thrive under pressure. And so I'm a disciple of Sun Tzu in the art of war. And I just said that you can grow enrollment by applying these things, whatever these things are. And so I went on a door-to-door campaign uh, to talk to families about what it was that they needed and asked them to just give me an opportunity. And we did this year in and year out, and the district just continued to grow. I was able to eliminate the deficit in 2 years ahead of schedule. And I want to thank the state, the Michigan Department of Education, for giving me an extension and allowing me to execute my plan. But again, I firmly believe that the universe conspires with you, right? And while the word conspiracy often has a negative connotation, I believe that the universe rewards you um, your thoughts, your actions, all are in alignment. And if you believe that something will happen, or if you believe it won't, it more than likely will. And we just figured out how to get people to come to a place that we felt was special, regardless to how the aesthetics around it looked. And so if you come, there's no aesthetically pleasing way to come into River Rouge. Lensburg, you know that.
Right.
But then they walk in and it's like Wakanda. And they're like, man, we didn't know all this existed here. It didn't. We created it. And if you create it, they will come. So initially, we just took the kids nobody else wanted because we believed we could help them. Their families then said, if you did that with them, let me send you these other children. And that's kind of how the district grew, but it was all based on a belief. And I believe that my assignment was spiritual. Um, and I was born for such a time. And so the timing of me coming and the experience that I'd had both in my personal and professional life, I was prepared for it.
Most definitely. I can definitely say that I always used to make this statement that education is a mission. You have to be on like a mission assignment because you have to really love your students or the people you serve to see change happen. Based upon your conversations, it sounds like you're a servant leader. So, what does that type of leadership look like in real life, especially when you're working through crisis?
Yeah. So I'm a servant leader with transformational qualities, right?
Yeah.
And because I believe that you can be there to serve, but you also have to have a vision. And Proverbs 29:18 says that where there's no vision, the people perish.
Yes, sir.
And so you have to believe that these things are possible. Um, so I walked in again. I am, relatively speaking, I believe that I've had great success, right? But my success has been predicated solely on my ability to help families. That's it. And to help children. And you said something that I think is profound. In education, you have to love the children.
Gotcha.
You have to love the work. And it is an overly used euphemism. People are like, oh, I love my kids. And I'm like, nah, you don't love them, you like them. Because your behavior would be different if you loved them.
Wow.
And so my behavior has me sacrificing. I want for these children the same thing I wanted for my own. So that's why the focus on wellness was so important, because there's this consistency, this discipline, this stamina that you must have in order to operate in these spaces. And the problem is that the more successful people become, the more comfortable they become. And comfort is a place where greatness goes to die. Because if you don't stay hungry, if you don't stay committed to this purpose, what do your behaviors then have to look like in order for you to be successful? And so I tell people, man, you can eat that, but it's your body, but it's not going to help you. And one thing I can't accept is our excuses. And you've made a choice, and whatever that choice is. And so you got to go to bed. I get up at 4:20 every morning. It's funny. You and I spend more time together than I do with a lot of people because we're at the gym till 7 o'clock, 7:30.
Right.
But I have to go in there and release all of this. And so what does my self-care regimen look like?
Mm-hmm.
And so most people don't have these self-care routines that allow them to have the stamina and endurance to do this work. You had referenced earlier, I have 25 plus year. I'm in my 30th year of education. I can retire after this year,
Wow. Wow.
but my energy is still abundant enough that I feel better than I did my first year coming in because the wisdom
Right.
matched with this stamina, I see it differently. And so it's easier for me, but the challenge becomes how do I get other people to adopt some of these same philosophies? My kids went to my school in my district. And I didn't do that for political reasons. I did that because it allowed for me to be a present parent and a present superintendent. My oldest daughter will be attending law school in the fall. My middle daughter is at Brown in a Master's of Public Health program. They both graduated from Tennessee State. And my youngest daughter is a freshman at LSU who received merit money. So you can't tell me that children who come from adverse conditions can't do well. And I tell people this, that one of the biggest, in my humble opinion, one of the greatest mistakes that parents make is that they want to place their children into environments that they think have advantages.
Right.
I believe that because of my success, my kids needed to be exposed to adversity because the
Mm-hmm.
world that they were going to walk into will be
Mm-hmm.
much different than these environments that have been uh, secluded from the masses, because you have to be of elite status to either reside in that community or know somebody. And so Malcolm Gladwell is one of my favorite authors, and he talks about desirable difficulties. That's what I wanted to create for my children. Desirable difficulties, so that when they get into academically, my kids were going to be okay because they're my children. But socially, I needed to prepare them for what the real world was going to be. So I created a
Wow.
district that was not only good enough for my own children, but my children attended.
Wow. That's great. That's great. So I think you kind of already answered this question, but I kind of want to expound on it some more. You talked about how healthy children are created by healthy adults, right? And so how did you develop these spaces where they weren't just learning spaces, but they were healing spaces?
Listen, great question. I have been a trauma sensitive educator since I began in the profession without understanding that that title actually existed.
Wow.
And so, again, my dissertation was on adverse childhood experiences, grit, and resilience. Um, I don't know. I thank God for enlightenment, right? I thank God for my ability to think independently and not be programmed. You can look at these institutions and see why, whether it be government, our schools, the prison system, whatever these institutions are, they remain static while the rest of the world is fluid. And so I think that I was smart enough and courageous enough to say that I'm going to try something different because I know this doesn't work. And when I initially created the trauma sensitive school, my entire focus was on the student. And you would have thought that once you show research, you were able to show, whether it be through video, anecdotally, here's how kids respond. It didn't have the widespread, and it wasn't embraced by the masses I would have liked. And I scratched my head trying to figure that out. And it was just through the continuous improvement cycle. You plan, you execute, you study the results, and then you act on it. I realized that the teachers weren't fully committed to a trauma sensitive environment because they had their own trauma.
Mm,
And so I didn't walk in believing that healthy adults were as important, because I thought that everybody was mission driven. That's why you chose the profession, and it's just not the truth. And so I had to address the adult trauma and unresolved emotional debt in order to help create a space that was healthier for children too.
I want to go back to something you said, because you've used this terminology several times. Talk a little bit about emotional debt and what that is.
Yeah, so you think about all of every bad thing that has happened to you doesn't necessarily mean it was traumatic. And words have meaning. And I always start I do these trainings all over the country. And what I want to first clarify is, what is trauma? And unless that event was so emotionally overwhelming that it impacted your ability to cope, you just had something bad happen to you. But whether it be trauma or these negative experiences, it's like this collective, you're carrying this suitcase full of all these bad experiences that are weighing you down. And so you can't move how you want to, because all of these scars, these constant reminders of these bad things that have happened to you. So it becomes emotional debt that you now have to relieve the debt. And the only way you can do that is through self-reflection and awareness. Most people, I view the ego as an angry parent that comes
Mm,
into a school ready to go off about something that happened to their child, whether the child was right or wrong. Because the ego's sole purpose is to protect that child. And it's not always going to look healthy. And so when you are able to first recognize that you're dealing with people's ego state whenever they're, not all people, but you'll see the ego when they're dealing with those things that are unresolved. I'm now able to say, no, I'm not dealing with this situation. I'm dealing with something that happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
And the presumption is that something has happened to you. So rather than describe the behavior and be like, why did you do that? I want to know what happened to you, whether it be adult or child, so that I can better address you. Because at the end of the day, most people want to lead by just standing over people and barking directions or telling folks what to do. I want to create these thinkers, these
Mm-hmm.
people who are incredibly self-aware, so that when these experiences happen later, they have the emotional balance and regulation to work through that so that the outcome becomes much more likely to be pleasant.
I love it.
Yeah.
Bo, you muted, sir.
Bo. There you go.
Hey, just listening to you, Dr. Coleman, obviously there's a high level of leadership taking place in your approach to the district. But that level of leadership, it can be heavy to
Mhm.
operate that level. So you alluded to this earlier about your workout. You do work out, but what are some things that you do to help you, in your mental and spiritual well-being to maintain that level of consistency?
Yeah, great question. First off, it's my diet. But when you hear the word diet, people automatically are thinking about what it is that you've eaten. It's anything that you have consumed. It's your conversations. Do you know how many conversations or how much guidance you've gotten from broken people? So the healthier you become, you're much more able to filter the intent of that person. Now when people are talking to me, I'm like, man, I can't receive that. But we've been influenced by it. And so I try to watch what I eat. Without Landsberg, it's funny because you asked me that the other day, how's my diet? And I was like, my diet is good, but I'm going to have cheat days
Right.
because, and, I'm human, but my diet is important. So those things that I choose to listen to, conversations that I choose to have, the food that I choose to ingest, the I think the scripture says that knowledge of God is the house of mourning, right? And because the more that and I think about God, also the God in me. And so the more that you know, the more enlightened and aware you are, the sadder it becomes because you look at the behaviors and habits of people around you. So I try to model it. I try not to shame people, but I have to tell them the importance of their life's choices and how they view the world. And that's probably the biggest reason why I think that I'm healthy enough to continue this work. Um, I'm the same size that I was when I graduated from college, but I'm in better shape. And I'm in better shape because I'm consistently in these spaces that allow for me to pour from and receive from people who are just like me. If you are at the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning, you've made uh, a concerted effort to align all those things in your life to allow you to get up this morning and come in there. And so, Landsberg, think about the people who we see every morning.
Right.
Their energy levels are high. That means they more than likely went to bed early. Um, and they're there because there's something that they either want to get off their chest or they like how they look. Whatever your reason for going, it's healthy for you to be in that place. And so that's what I just try to do, surround myself with healthy choices because I know that I'm going to walk into an environment that needs that version of me or I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to become one of them.
Wow. Yeah, that's powerful. And that consistency of starting your day with prayer, meditation, and working out really energizes you for long days and long hours. You're a proven leader. We can tell you've been in leadership and a superintendent position for over 14 years. And sometimes you can get caught up in the cause, but you have created systems and solutions. How did you transition that into your own business? How did you transition what you do in your building to be in a position where you can take it to the world and run your consulting company?
Yeah. Oh, listen, great question because I never intended for this to happen. So whether it be around my ability, the city of Detroit and Mayor Duggan, and this is all chronicled, you can video it, have looked at my ability to attract children into the school district. They're like, how is he able to bring kids down into River Rouge? Um, the the focus for me of the work was just simply to say, children need this, right? And people are watching me. And the more success I had, the more it was being replicated or duplicated. And so my
Mm,
school board told me that people should be paying you for that because those are your ideas.
correct.
And so I started a consulting company, which really initially just focused on helping school district attract students. Um, the trauma work was very organic. Like I'm going on these podcasts and I'm talking to people. And then I started doing the work internally in my own district. And then I just said, you know what? I'll take it out. So I started doing it. I've done, I can't tell you how many sessions in Baltimore, Chicago. I've done work with the University of South Florida. Um, you name it. There are probably 6 school districts in Michigan that I do this work with. But it was just very organic. I didn't think that I would monetize it. It just came about because people were stealing the stuff that I was doing anyway. And I'm like, well, if they're going to steal it, I might as well get paid for it.
Pay me,
Might as
baby.
well. Might as well. Might as well. So, with all that we've talked about, as I said earlier before we started, I'm approaching 50, so I think a lot about this, the term legacy. So, I want to ask you, when it's all said and done, what is it that you want your legacy to be?
Man, I I told I've told people this since I started this work. And I said that I want to have left an imprint so big that they're going to name a school after me.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And whatever that meant, I wasn't for certain, but I knew that I had to have completed um, a body of work that was so notable because I didn't have a name sake or birthright. My mother didn't graduate from high school. Her and my father weren't married. I grew up in poverty. So there was nothing that I had that I could then lean into to say that, hey, I'm here because of I hit this genetic lottery, right?
Hmm.
And so the work that I have had to do, is ministry, and people in my district leadership team will tell you that our ministry of service is going to be so great that they would name a school after me. If no one ever knew who I was, outside of the families that I touched, I believe that the stories that they're going to tell about the impact that I had, the role that I played in their lives, is probably the most important thing that I can do. So I'm not looking necessarily for public notoriety. It took me a while to even be receptive to coming on podcasts and things like that, because here's the funny thing about people, but especially our people. They want to see you do well, but not better than them.
Yeah.
They cheer you on until you get to a certain point that they then start to despise your success. And so I've always wanted to be in the background. I've promoted my team for the work that we've done, whether it was absolutely my idea or not. I've deferred credit.
Mm.
And so my legacy is just going to be that I know that I've extended opportunities to thousands of families that they would not have had otherwise. And there are going to be generations of people who will have benefited from this gift of benevolence and grace that I've extended to people when I didn't have to do it.
Outstanding.
It's been excellent. And before we close it out, I just want to ask because I'm hoping that other leaders, maybe even some educators who may be able to pass this podcast episode to, their administrators, maybe even some superintendents, what would be maybe a closing message to those educators and leaders what would be a closing message for them?
Um, I just want to acknowledge how difficult this work is that we have chosen to do. Some of us have been chosen to do this work, and some of us have chose to do it.
Hmm.
But the reality of it is that I think that for those of us who operate in a space that comes purely from wanting to see young people do better, our entire existence has been to be useful to others. And so for them not to forget why they chose the profession, and rather than blame other people for their lack of success or for the challenges that they're experiencing, just to become reflective on their own choices, the requirement of this work. Like, I think that the worst thing you can do is stay in here and be in an abusive relationship because you feel like you're just trying to get to retirement.
Mm.
This is ministry, and embrace that. And the moment you realize that it no longer suits you, leave, because you're going to do more damage. And if you desire to stay in this work, then figure out what the discipline, the self-care plan, everything, the people who you need to remove from your life and add so that you can continue to do this work at a high level.
So much, Dr. Coleman. And I didn't know that you had a consulting service, but if people wanted to invite you out to speak or take advantage of your services, how would they go about doing that? And also, can they connect with you across social media and the internet?
Yeah, again, my Instagram is Dr. Derrick, Coleman 1906. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's funny because like and I do consistent work with consulting, but I haven't even promoted it, oftentimes because it's through word of mouth. I'll do a training. I'm a national speaker, so I've done trauma trainings at the National School Board Association, the Council of Urban Boards of Education, the National Society of Black Educators. I'm consistently doing this work, but I'm easy to get into contact with. And if it makes sense for both parties, I'd love to come regardless. Just would have to be able to fit it into my schedule. I think that this framework that I offer is beneficial to everyone. But before they even call me, they would have to ask themselves if they committed to doing what's going to be necessary, because I don't benefit by coming to invest in a place that's dead. If they're not willing to address those things that are going to make them better, I don't even want them to contact me. I only want to work with people who understand that there's some work that they need to do on themselves, and they'll commit to doing that as an organization.
Love it. Love it. And thank you so much again, Dr. Coleman, for coming on the show, man. This has been incredible. We're probably going to say, man, we're going to have to try to get you back in. I know superintendents can be very, very busy, man, but I feel like you got a lot more to say. But to our listeners, thank you for joining in. This concludes another episode of The Lifeline with your host, Barry J. Elliott, Lindsberg Petway, and yours truly, Bo Powell. Don't forget to check us out at www.simplybje.com/The Lifeline and on social media. Look, we're on a mission. We want to bring light and life into your household. So join us and let us hear your feedback, because it's all about bringing life to you on The Lifeline. Y'all take care.
Thank you for listening to today's episode with host, business expert, and life coach Bo Powell, social media influencer and entrepreneur Lindsberg Petway, and leadership coach and mental health advocate Barry J. Elliott. Join us next week for another impactful conversation on The Lifeline. God bless.